Today I'm going to share with you my booth sales report for the second 2 weeks of January. I have an antique booth in an antique store in the North Georgia mountains, and the second 2 weeks of January were a little bit better for me than the first 2 weeks of January. The first 2 weeks were pretty slow, and I was a little bit discouraged, even though I think it's normal for there to be a wind down after the holidays. And also we had 2 days where the store was closed due to snow. So that didn't happen the second 2 weeks of January. And I'll show you here what my booth sales report looks like. My total sales for the second 2 weeks of January were $212.40. That does not include the 10% commission that I pay off the top to the store. So the 10% commission that I paid was $21.24, which came off the top of that amount, $212.40. So the first item that sold in this pay period was this really pretty vintage Japanese pottery owl mug. I didn't put it in the antique booth. I put it on Instagram, and one of my friends who just loves owls immediately said she wanted it. So I hand delivered it to her house, and it didn't go into the booth. I paid $0 for it because it came out of that gift haul that I got from a friend, and it sold for $12. The second item that sold was an item that I sold on consignment for my friend Sylvia. I'm not sure what she paid for this alabaster jar, and this is not the photo of it. I didn't have a photo of her jar, so I just found one online that looked very similar. Sylvia was a big garage sale person when she was younger, so she probably only paid a couple of dollars for this, and it sold for $28. Somehow I forgot to include the Barbies in the first 2 weeks of January sales report video. I can't believe that I forgot them. I love Barbies, and it's not very common for me to find them. In fact, I paid $0 for these Barbies because they were also in the gift haul that I got from a friend. So I didn't pay anything for the Barbies. Super grateful to have them, and they both sold for $18 a piece to a pair of sisters on the same day. The next item that sold was this wooden toolkit. I'm pretty sure this was a handmade toy. I paid $4.09 for it, and it sold for $12. So I didn't quite get that 3 times markup on this. I probably should have put 16 on the toolkit. But regardless, I'm glad that someone came into the booth and either saw it to buy for a gift for a child, or that a child actually came into my booth and saw it and wanted it. I really like toys for children that don't require batteries. When my son was little, I just really preferred toys that didn't take batteries. For one thing, batteries are expensive, and then you're constantly having to replace them and find the tiny little screwdriver and open battery compartments and replace batteries, and then also having to worry about how to properly dispose of batteries. And so all of that was just a lot when my son was little, and I always just really loved it when we could find wooden toys for him, or toys that otherwise didn't need batteries. Tupperware sells surprisingly well for us. This green Jell-O mold, I just really liked it. My mom had a green one, and of course it reminded me of her. I paid 77 cents for the Jell-O mold, and it sold for $12. This photo, you'll see that there's a copper mold that's being used to hold my cookie cutters. This was also one of Sylvia's items, and I have several of her copper molds in the booth. It was this one that was holding the cookie cutters that sold. I'm not sure what she paid for it, probably just a couple of dollars, and it sold for $10. Whenever I can find Pyrex in good condition and for a good price, I buy it. Sells really well for us. This pattern is called the Homestead pattern, and I sold this mixing bowl. It was in perfect condition with no chips or cracks, and it had no dishwasher damage, which is actually a great find. I paid $3 for this bowl, and it sold for $22. I have several sets of Corelle. I have Spring Blossom, Butterfly Gold, and then I have this pattern, which is called Snowflake Garland. So I bought several of these cups and saucer sets, and I paid $1 for each set. I sold another cup and saucer set for $12. So I was super excited about that. These Corelle patterns were manufactured by Corelle to complement the Pyrex patterns. So anything Pyrex, I love it. And then when I started finding these Corelle pieces that matched, I get excited about that kind of stuff. I sold a small decanter. It's the one on the left in this photo. If you look at the bottom of the decanter around it, I call it a sunburst pattern. It's a mid-century design. I paid $2.09 for this cute little decanter, and it sold for $14. You saw my video of my booth sales report for the first 2 weeks of January. I'm going to put a link to that video in the description. You'll remember that there was one booth sales ticket, and I'm going to put a picture of it because I want it to be in focus. This is what our booth tickets look like. And what we're supposed to do is remove the price tags from the items at the cash register and tape them to the booth ticket and then indicate whose item it is in this little box. So when I got this ticket back, I was like, a tray for $10. I had no idea what that was. Now, I knew what the cheese board was because I only had one cheese board in the booth, but I had no idea what the tray was. I wasn't sure how to account for it in my bookkeeping because I didn't know what it was, because the price tag that I had made wasn't taken off and taped to the booth ticket. So I figured out what it was, and I decided to include it in today's video because it was so cute. It was actually a cutting board, and it was a 1980s piece with strawberries on it. My favorite thing in vintage kitchenware is anything with strawberries on it. So I was excited, and I basically just figured it out by memory that it was no longer in the booth, which is hard for me. If you have an antique booth, it's hard to remember what you put in each spot unless you're constantly taking photos of everything in your booth. You'll go into your booth, and I only get to visit my booth twice per month because I live 2 hours away from my booth. But you'll see an empty spot, but you can't remember what was in it. At least I can't. So I just somehow figured it out that this mystery tray on this ticket was actually the strawberry cutting board. I paid $1.09 for it, and it sold for $10. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found the video valuable, whether you have an antique booth like I do, or if you sell online. If you sell online, I would imagine that the kinds of things that are selling for us in the antique store are also selling for you or will sell for you. So thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.